My friends, welcome to Talk Casual, and tonight we're broadcasting all over the Outer Rim. Special night tonight, we're having the discussion on how to fix the VSD. I'm the Grand Master of Salt here, the Mars Hole. To the right of me, I have Hangry. Say hello.
You almost said trash.
Yeah, I did say
I heard that.
I
You
did almost
did.
say it. We always have trash on them, but we have the Hangry.
It's good to be here. Thank you.
And we have the Pepper himself, Games with James.
Hello. How's it going?
All right, guys. So
You need to have like a thunderous applause sound.
Yes.
You need like thunderous applause is what we need here.
Yeah, actually, I was... ideas. Excellent ideas, guys. Fantastic. So tonight, how did this come along? Well, thanks to Hangry himself, he actually started thinking of the idea of, hey, what are we going to do about the VSD? And like, you know what? This sounds like a good idea for Talk Casual. And here we are tonight. We've got a bunch of Imperial admirals, experienced Imperial admirals here to discuss how do we fix the VSD. We were supposed to have the Minister of Fun, but he decided to be funning around somewhere else. But I presume he'll come in a bit later. All right, guys, let's start off with something very simple. Let's just, before we start ripping into the ship that's been out for almost about 6 or 7 years or so, let's think of something positive about the ship. Hangry, what do you say? Something positive about the VSD?
Look, the VSD, it's a solid ship. It's been, as you said, for 6-7 years now. It's let's say for the first 3 years, maybe. Let's not go 6 or 7 because others have come out. But
yeah,
it's a solid ship. I mean, you look at the one, you've got the long range and the short range. Yeah, it doesn't have anything in between, but it was really good to give you a couple of hits as you're going in, but get it in close and, pop it away with APTs and, your little concussion missiles and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then you had the two, which was your stable medium to long range ship where you just kept firing, you kept your distance and you kept firing. It was a good screening ship also to set up in the middle and screen while you ran around the side, or your squadrons attacked with it too. It had that ability to fend off and give good firepower while long range still.
Absolutely. Games?
Yeah, no, I found it to be a pretty decent role player. Yeah, and it had pretty decent options to put different stuff on it. So I had a lot of fun messing around with different builds on it, and I thought they all had some viability, depending on, even the 2 is all right as a squad pusher.
Yeah.
Things like that, and it's got a decent. It had decent survivability, although we'll get to that later. But yeah, in at that time, it was an okay ship across the board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's good. That's good. Guys, also, if you are watching us tonight, we have comments from YouTube as well. You can join in the chat, give us a comment, what you think about the VSD. We'll read them out. We've also got some Facebook comments as well that we'll be going through from the thanks to you guys who decided to join in the chat. And if you are watching, you can comment on Discord as well. Join us on Discord, on Twitch and YouTube. If you are watching the replay, definitely comment in YouTube and we'll definitely reply back and have your thoughts and say about this ship that's kind of gone on the wayside. Right, guys, let's get... I am listening. Can't see where on Discord, Clint is saying.
Thanks for listening, Clint. Thanks for listening.
Just click on I gave you a invite to join us here. So if you can see the messages there, just join us there. All right, guys, let's start off with, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to transition off to the first main picture that kind of really sets the tone for what we're talking about tonight. And that is, if you put the Acclimator 1 and a VSD 1 together, you'll just see what kind of difference there is with the ship itself. As you can see, a VS, for 66 points, you get an Acclimator 1, and for 73 points, you get a Victory 1. For what is it? 7 points extra, you lose speed, you gain a black dice, you've got the same command squadron engineering value, you lose 1 AA dice, but you gain a blue dice, and then
it's not even that. It's one blue
one
versus
blue.
two black.
Two black.
2 black AA is amazing.
Yeah, and then you get instead of 2 braces, well, instead of a salvo, you get two redirects, and on top of that, you lose one of the offensive retrofit slots for a VSD. So, in all honesty, is that worth 7 points to you?
100%. I mean, look, I understand new versus old, and they've come up with new things and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But geez, I'd give up a redirect for a what do you call it? What's the name?
Salvo.
A salvo token anytime. Like, I mean, 2 reds.
When your rear is 2 red, yeah.
Yeah, 2 red. And what's that? The possibility of getting 4 hits back on a salvo. That's huge.
Not just
the ability.
Yeah, not just that. Like you can you put LTTs on it for a reroll as well on it. So
100%. Like there's so many combos you can come up with. And I mean, I know people look at it and go, oh, but the 3, if you were to put 3 on there, even if you give us the same one, which is nothing, 1, nothing. I mean, there's so many things you get. Nav tokens.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, absolutely. The Acclimator speed 3 is rubbish, but at least it's speed 3.
That's right, but at speed 3, all of a sudden you can get a victory and that's not being left behind.
Yeah.
While you have most of your fleet charging in, and I mean, look, I know everyone has different play style. My play style particularly is as fast as I can get into a battle. I sort of charge in, and yeah, it makes me lose battles all the time, but it's still fun throwing ships in at people.
Yeah.
I don't really tend to think about things and strategies. My strategy is more I just want to throw dice.
I forgot to say, guys, my positive for the VSD, it's a great looking model with the antennas if they stay on there.
If you can find it.
If you can find it, if it doesn't fall off.
If you can find it, yeah.
It's a nice looking model, and it's just
it's
like
classic.
Yeah, it's a classic little. It's like my first ISD kind of thing when you get from the
my
Corsair.
first Star Destroyer, yeah.
That's it. So your training wheels Star Destroyer before you get the big one. But yeah,
that's the first car. What are you talking about? Everyone gets that car that they go, it's a shitbox. But after when you get rid of that first car, you're like, I love that car.
Yeah.
I miss that car.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. 100%.
I don't know how many times you open your box and you go to pick out your ships for your new list, and you go, and I mean, Mars, how many victories you got? Let's be honest.
I've got 4.
You got 4. James, how many you got?
I've got 2.
2. I mean, I've got 2. I know that, but I'm sure there are so many people out there that lift the box, and it's like, it's like the redheaded stepchild. It's like, I want to play with you, but you know what? You're just not good enough.
James, what do you think? Is 7 points better for a victory from Acclimator 1 to Victory 1?
It's not really. It's not really comparable. I think the 7 points is a bit too much difference between there. The only thing I say with the Speed 3, particularly on both Acclimator variants, is that they are kind of black dice focused, so they do have that speed to account for that. I think they've got that design focus behind them, whereas the 2 victories are both very different in their application, and so the black dice is a letdown on the Victory 1 because it just doesn't get there that fast.
No, it doesn't, unless if you take
but it does make it a threat as an anchor if you use it right, but it's hard to get it into position.
Yeah, so
I mean, look,
go ahead.
Like I could actually even handle the speed 2 if I had more yaw to work with.
And that's it. I mean, and they tried to fix it when they gave the Harrow upgrade, which gave you that extra ability to put someone on there like Engine Tech where you couldn't move it. Yeah. Same, exactly. More points. I mean, how you look at 64 points throwing an Engine Tech and that, it kind of made it worth it for the speed. But when you were throwing an Engine Tech on top of that, you're getting up at 80, 90, points for a ship that had to charge in a battle with everything else, going, "Hey, wait for me, guys! Wait for me! I'm coming too."
Yeah.
So I'll just add a comment from one of our Facebooks. Michael Gill said 10-point drop for both variants based on a simple comparison to the Republic. That alone brings a lot of recent fixed upgrades into contention. What do you think? 10 points less for both variants, so it'd be 63 points for Victory 1.
I still don't think it's, even if you drop it to 60 points, it's not. I think it's just the upgrade.
Sorry.
Starting to go, James.
No, 10 across the board for both of them might be a little too much, only considering if you were to literally leave the ships the same as they are with all the hull and tokens they've got, then that seems reasonable, 10 points, but considering other internal balance of what can go on them and stuff like that, 10 is probably a reasonable starting point. If all you were to do was try to change the points to make them more attractive an option, then sure.
I think, I'm happy to drop the hull, drop the one hull so they're at 7,
Yeah.
and just give us the speed. Like, if you want to sacrifice something and say, okay, well, let's put them on an equal playing field, drop the hull, give them speed 3, and I'd be happy with the way they're set up still.
So what I try to think about the ship, what they could do is what has FFG done before. Well, it's going to be AMG now doing the whole thing, but what has FFG done before? You take the example for, say, the Star Destroyer. They brought 2 other refits, the Simoon and the Kuat refits. So they could probably do another 2-card variant of the Victory and give you some kind of specific mission type of that. But you still have the problem of the Victory 1 and the Victory 2. So, of course...
Well, the thing with those alternate ISD builds is they just simply gave you some interesting different options. I still feel like between an ISD 1 and 2 and then the Kuat and Simoon, they're all sideways choices.
Yeah.
With only really, what, I don't know, ultimately about 5 points between them to really consider, but they're all interesting sideways choices to work with, whereas the 2 victories are quite disparate in the same way. So even if you had another, quote unquote Kuat/Simoon option for the Victory, they're still going to suffer under the basic setup of what the core is. Sorry, let me rephrase. They will end up becoming the only other 2 choices with no reason to use the Victory 1 or 2. That's the problem there.
Yeah,
I'll tend to agree a little bit with you on that one, James. But I will say, giving that sideways option, if you're gonna go on the sideways option, you still have to fix the class 1 and 2. And
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think the biggest issue, and hell, I'd still leave it if you still left it at the points. For me, the Victory is a great ship. It's just too slow.
Yeah.
You give it a speed 3. I don't care if it was, nothing 1 or 1 nothing. But just give it a speed 3.
Yeah.
That makes you forced to use your navigation or add something else that you want to do on it. But all of a sudden, the ship becomes a different. And I reckon you'd almost see the meta shift itself. If this was at speed 3, I reckon you'd almost see double VSD lists come back out for the points wise it's worth. It becomes an actual,
Now, Luke has just said in the comments here they did make Moff Jerry to try to fix the VSD. Do you think Jerry is to fix the VSD, or do they think that they might bring a new admiral to fix the VSD?
I think I see what he says there, but I also think that one single admiral choice for the purpose of one ship is a little bit band-aid.
Yeah, well, that's what we need. It needs a band-aid, I think. You can't. I don't think it can be rewritten, the Victory 1. I don't think you can just chuck it out and go, well, that's it for that ship. But
no.
It needs some kind of fix of some sort where it's either going to be a point drop, admiral fix, officer, whatever actual points reduction card. We just don't know. So
I did that already with the Harrow. They released Harrow, which gave you the ability to put engine tech on there, which was fine. Jerry, Jerry is good, but Jerry's fantastic. I mean, you can turn an ISD at a right angle, which is fantastic sometimes.
I suppose he does have broader use. Yeah.
He does broader use. So I mean, Jerry's great in that retrospect, but all he does is he doesn't give you the extra speed. He just gives you an extra click. It's not, I understand what Luke's saying. Luke's saying, hey, we brought it out to fix it, but he doesn't give you extra speed. He just gives you that extra click. Yeah, okay, you can turn the Victory, turn it around, which is great, but still doesn't get it to the battle. By the time you get in a Victory to the battle, it's taken so much damage to get there.
Yeah.
Especially, and I'm going to throw it out there. You imagine this against Clint's list, your Victories would be dead by about turn 3 and never be close to, getting anywhere if you play someone like Clint and his friggin' red dice.
Yeah, especially with Onagers around, you just, they're just sitting ducks.
Yeah.
So, let's have a look at some other comments here. So Clint saying a Victory 1 to Victory 2, 12 points, way too much. Of course, James Peterson also is again for the price either for 1 or 2. The upgrades you would need to be just better to bring an ISD. Only way to fix the Victory is to point drop both of them. So everyone's going to is saying for the points drop. Of course, Harrow is the good title that helps the Victory, but it only helps one. So, and also the other thing is too, if you want shield, if you want a defensive retrofit, you want to put Tua, and that's taken as well. So, and if you want Salvo, you've got to take the gun team slot away with local fire control, or put Tua and then put reactive gunnery. So
so you pretty much make it a toothless tiger to get your defense, or to make it go faster. It's same again. You're penalizing yourself if you're trying to make it better.
Yeah.
What are people's thoughts on simply, and because this exists on other Rebel ships as well, is because one of the key points is its relative resilience. It just doesn't last on the table. So what about simply giving it double brace and double redirect as its tokens?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Because there are, isn't that what Nebulons have and other things like that?
Yeah, absolutely.
And they're predicated on that kind of defense. So
I just feel like they would be better.
Make it a little tank.
I'd say I like the idea, James, but I perfectly, a salvo would be really good, like with those double reds from the Victory. That
100%.
It would be absolutely awesome.
Although then again, if you give it double brace and double redirect, and then you can give it the fire response team or whatever, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
you could swap or put in Nita to swap, or a Nita or someone like that to swap a token around for something else to give you some flexibility.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, Nita will give you the evade only. So
no, I know. I was just spitballing him as a concept that there are other officers that can switch tokens around and swap, or other upgrades that do similar concepts. Right. So if you have the 4 tokens, you've got something to work with to.
Yeah. It needs a fourth token. It needs a fourth token, I'd say, and the speed as well. What about like an upgrade, like say the swivel mount batteries that the Republican Separatists have, to give it that extra die, say on the sides or at the front, because Benjamin is basically saying the Victory needs more dice, I'd say. So would you say more dice would be the issue, or?
No, I don't think its offensive output is necessarily the problem. I think it's just too fragile, I think, in the current climate.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just jumping to... I'm going to 100% agree with what Luke's just said. If you allow the Victory to take thermal shields, game changer, and I'd be happy with the way it is.
Yep. You did bring this up, but go ahead. Hangry, what was your thought on that?
Sorry, Luke brought this up, and I was just going to say, off air, Mars and I were chatting about this, and this was... Thermal shielding is, and I think the last tournament I played, I come up against Andrew, and he has this amazing combination with his ships where, it didn't matter how many dice you were throwing, he was literally shrugging off whatever you threw at him and just going, okay, I'll take 1 or 2 here, and then he was repairing, and then it was like 1 or 2 here, and it was just crazy. Now, you give the Victory that ability to take that, all of a sudden, doesn't matter how slow it is, you can use it as a block. You can use it at, hey, I'm going to set my Victories up over here. I'm going to come round. But it gives the Victory a fighting chance to weather incoming fire when it's going straight at something and take, and shrug off what it needs to do to get in to do the damage.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be a really good upgrade for the Victory, just to survive, especially again with Onagers on the board, because of that speed too. They're just not going to get into the fight that quickly. But at least with thermal shields, it will give them that longevity that you definitely need to get there. Of course, granted, they can put offense decaps on it just so they can fire with the Victory too. They can fire those red and blue at long range. But
even with the new Venators, they've got the mini little, like, almost like honor guns. They're like mini honor guns where they're not
the splat guns, yes.
Yeah, and same again, but that. Think of a Victory trying to get there. Even them would get wiped out by having, these little splat guns or whatever they are. Like, it doesn't make sense to have these guns that can shoot 3/4 of your table.
Yeah.
And have a ship that can only move 2 is just, it's almost laughable at why you'd spend your points on trying to put it in your list.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. All right, so we'll go on to the next one. Of course, we'll go to the other comparison, the Acclamator 2 and the Victory 2. So even again, the Acclamator 2 is even cheaper than the Victory 1 by 2 points. So well, I'm just going for comparisons for the two other ships. For this one, you basically lose one of the offensive. Actually, you lose the offensive retrofit and you gain a defensive. Well, if you're looking at the way around. So if you acclimate one to victory one, you lose the defensive retrofit and just gain the offensive retrofit. Instead of you still have the free red dice, but instead of one blue and two black, you gain the free blue. So it's a kind of a better gain. You lose the black die for AA, and you're still at speed 2. And basically all this for how many points? For 14 points.
Once again, why would you?
Yeah. Again,
I think it's also starting to show up the age of the design intent, where the Victory 1 and Victory 2 are so different in what their role is supposed to be.
Yeah.
Whereas both the acclimators are, chunky assault ships. Like they're predicated around those black dice.
Yeah.
And their role is to be up and close and personal. The two Victories, it's really hard to make a universal change to Victories that doesn't impact one or the other build to become useless in some way.
Yeah. Look, the VSD one still has its place. I did read a comment on Facebook today. I think it was. He, instead of running the Quasar, he Jim Riley has says, and especially with bombers, he'll run the VSD Corruptor instead of way more solid than a Quasar. So, granted, the Quasar, if you are running a Sloan Ball, that is the way to go. But it does have its little quirks with the titles, like it's a Corruptor.
Quasar is pretty soft, yeah.
Yeah, Warlord is awesome title.
Warlord's amazing.
Yeah. And the other one as well, I can't remember when you lose shields. I can't remember off the top of the other one.
There is is it Decimator?
I can't remember. See, that's how long I haven't even looked at a build of a VSD.
So you're talking Corruptor, Dominator, Harrow, Warlord, and Seventh Fleet.
Yeah, Dominator.
Where you spend your shields to add blue dice.
No,
so while attacking at close to medium range, you may spend up to 2 shields from any hull, and then add that number of blue dice to your attack.
Yeah,
but that's 12
points.
It's 12 points.
Yeah,
like once again, that's ridiculous. I mean, you talking about there's 14 points between ships. All of a sudden, that makes it look good. But once again, not for 12 points on a ship that's already costing you 85 points.
Yeah.
It's insane.
And see, this is, again, my point is that a title like that, it makes it costs 12 points because on the Victory 2 with decaps, it's crazy. But on the Victory 1, it's an interesting cool buff that gives it more utility. And so 12 points it has to be that much because it would be potentially, it can be crazy on the Victory 2 with the sheer output, whereas, or at least in the older climate of the game, but Victory 1, adding a couple of blue dice to your reds or inside with your blacks is pretty solid. Give you some agency and control over your dice. But I've used it with the Victory 1 before, and it seems to work quite well.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's have a look at any more comments. The VSD can be a good trailer ship. I have been punished late game while trying to fly away. Yes, it definitely. That's again one of the main problems when you're trying to run away and save those points for MOV. The VSD just doesn't keep up, and
no, it's not getting anywhere.
No. That's
especially late game when it's already taken damage and stuff. Like it's not.
It's not, and it's, especially when you think of, and I'll just give you a fair point of where I remember playing a game myself and it got mopped up was I played against Trash and his world famous Hammerhead list where, these things just run around the things like mosquitoes that you can't swat and you just hear them coming. But I think he ran a Congo line of 4 of them and wiped one of my VSDs out in one turn before it even got a shot off.
Oh, that's crazy.
They're just too quick to run around where your VSD can't turn, it can't do anything. And next thing you know is they're coming in.
Yeah.
I think he hit one rear on one shot and then he got around enough where he was hitting the rear of the second round and it was gone. Like you just couldn't do anything about it. So whether you got these fast ships doing speed 4s around the track and you've got this, ship that's running 2.
Yeah.
They've caught you by turn 1, they're firing dice at you. By turn 2, they've overtaken you and they're firing dice at you and then you're gone. Like you can't even catch them to get a shot back at them.
Yeah, again, a salvo would be way really cool. It's like you shoot me,
100%.
I shoot 2 red back at you, and so granted, red dice aren't the greatest, but ask Clint, he can convince you that they're the greatest things since sliced bread. So yeah,
Just got an interesting point for you, Mars, on that is, do you know, like I had a quick look at before we got online, there are only 2 rebel ships that are speed 2. Do you know what they are?
Rebel ships.
I don't know. Ian never uses them.
The
I'm just
Pelters one.
saying.
The Pelters
Nope.
one.
No, Pelter's 3 in the rebel list. It's 2
Yep.
in the new list.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay, and in the Republic it's speed 2.
yeah, in the Republic it's a speed 2 ship, which is interesting.
Oh, okay.
So
what would be
just fun fact for you.
what would be a speed 2 ship for the Rebellion?
Well, the Starhawk for one.
Oh,
Yep.
Starhawk.
Starhawk's 1.
Yeah.
Yep.
But the Starhawk's beefy and can take
Exactly. So
take a hit.
that's fine.
makes sense.
It's not the Liberty.
Nope.
Uh,
Yeah, it's the MC80. It's the pickle.
Oh, the pickle. Yeah, the pickle. But
Yeah.
the pickle has like the double turn and can turn really
Exactly.
easily. So it's a maneuverability. It's absolutely,
So you,
Well, it's a
you lose
broadside
speed.
ship too. Like even
that's what I mean.
it exemplifies the broadside element. It's got to turn on a dime, and
that's it.
So once again, you're losing speed, but you have the maneuverability, which is fine.
Yeah.
You look at the Imperial side, the last only 2 ships, the VSD and the Interdictor.
The Interdictor.
And
But
the Interdictor makes up with it because, I mean, shit, it can weather any storm you throw at
Yeah,
it. You've proven that time and time again. It doesn't matter how many things you throw at it.
Yeah.
It shrugs it off and says, "Come back for more."
not just that, but like the speed 2 maneuver of 1-1, it's still is really good. And then with a nav command to give yourself that extra click, you can almost shimmy really well with it. And again, yeah, of course, having a repair and a token, that's 8 repair points. So you're basically saying, well, I'll buy back my 4 shields I lost. Thank you very much. So
Exactly.
at the risk of sounding like well, not really at a risk anyway, being more narrative gamer or being a bit more into the theme of what things are about, I appreciate the difference of design where Imperial ships are supposed to be frontal bulldogs. They're not supposed to broadside things. That's the design asymmetry of the game, right?
Well, if you want to do that,
which is perfectly fine, but that's becoming an aged concept because of the more and more interesting game interactions are more predicated on your offensive dice stuff more so than on defensive stuff. And all the defensive stuff is limited to a couple of interesting, like the Interdictor or a particular singular upgrade on one ship, not so much mechanic in the game, right?
Yeah.
So like the victory again suffers by having 3 tokens is no small thing, but it only takes 1 accuracy to really ruin its day.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
Whereas, and it doesn't have a lot of scope. It doesn't have a lot of scope to add agency to that. More like you can't even put ECM on it without another upgrade, right? Like you got to spend extra points to even do that.
Yeah.
And this is where we were talking before, is to beef up a victory where we can withstand and weather more than 2 rounds. You've almost got to bring it up to the price of what an ISD is.
Yeah, that's
and by that stage you may as well have your extra hull and everything.
And that's where you go, well, you know what, I may as well take the ISD and get the extra points and just change what I've got.
That's it.
But,
and then you've got you've got brace, double redirect, and then a contain as well.
Exactly.
So absolutely, and that's basically the main consensus that you're getting as well from a lot of Facebook comments as well. The sad thing is that, it's a wave 1 ship, it's gonna be, taken away by the times. But if you look at the wave 1 ships, so is the CR90. Now a CR90 with TRC, that is still on the board, like it's still doing stuff.
That was Ian's bread and butter, and
that's not Ian's bread and butter. It is a staple, like Jaina's Light TRC. That ship is just always there. You'll never it's
always bad when there's an auto include.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
So,
and I agree with what James Person just said there too. The problem with the Vic, like what I said before about it being a bulldog, the problem is it doesn't have a nav chart or defensive profile to be a bulldog. That's and I agree. That's the problem. Like it's in there for that intent, but it hasn't been implemented properly, or at least can't be in the current game.
Yeah, and as a bulldog, it's got to be able to get into the fight, and that's the biggest problem. It can't get into the fight and be that bulldog.
Yeah.
I mean, 3 and 3 is bulldog. I mean, even you look at 3 red, 3 black, that can put out some decent damage. But once again, it's useless when by the time it gets to the fight, it's either dead, almost dead, or the ship's flown straight past it because it couldn't get there fast
Yeah,
enough.
that front arc is just long and gone, or you've got some crit that's just made it worse and worse. So now I'm going to put up the last and final picture that I've got here. Now this is an X Wing 1.0 card. This is for the A Wing. This is a chart and refit. So this is another long lines of what can be done with the Victory as well. It can have a card with a negative cost. Granted, it might take a slot, but at least there can be some kind of built negative cost. So, thoughts on that, gentlemen? Hangry?
Honestly, it's good in theory, but once again, if it doesn't give you the maneuverability or the speed, it's useless. I mean, yeah, look, you can knock it down all you want, but I mean, Harrow is only 3 points.
Yeah.
So, I mean, hell, tack on Harrow,
Well,
all of a sudden...
Harrow and then engine tech, so you've got to think about that as well.
Exactly, but that's 8 points. Cool.
Yeah.
So you add a little bit more, but all of a sudden it gives you an extra move and a double click at the end. All of a sudden, this thing's turning and you can get into the fight with it. Yeah, it makes it dearer, but you can only do it on one. If you could put Harrow as a, like a 7th Fleet Star Destroyer where you can put it on all the ships and everything else, if Harrow was like a double thing, I guarantee you would see a resurgence of VSDs out on the board because of that ability to come out and double turn. And hell, I remember I did a list with Harrow and Jerry, and I think I was turning these things almost 180 to get into people, which one of the ships was. And it was great for when you had people who, like CR90s that come around your big ship, you had the Victory there to turn on a dime and go, well, here I am to, pick up the pieces.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, mechanically it shouldn't be too difficult to add in a card like that Chardan where you go, here is a title card like 7th Fleet, and it goes on every Victory that you've got in your squadron, in your fleet, and then on that card it says, this ship can also take a normal title.
Yeah.
Like it frees up the spot so it can take its own regular unique title, but all of them have a, 7th Fleet X whatever negative points cost or something. That would work.
Yeah.
In terms of putting it into the game now rather than reprinting a card or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I just want a question for you, James, as you are the 40k player. Like we were talking off air, like certain things that do come out of that been out for a while. How do they keep that certain things fresh?
That's the thing is they typically don't. You just get new stuff.
Yeah.
And so that the support for older things is harder to find. And so I can see that it doesn't, like even Atomic Games are going to be like, well, everyone's already got their Imperial ships. We don't need them to buy more stuff. Like we want them to buy more new stuff, not more Imperial stuff. So, that they just disincentivize you getting those old ones because you don't have that support for it anyway. It's probably a harsh business maneuver. It happens.
Yeah.
Or it just doesn't have that in-game support. Where if you're a diehard and you can make it work. I'm still going to fly a Victory and I'm going to give it a crack. I'm going to still fly 2 Victories and throw them around and sometimes have some success. But I'm not going to necessarily take them to tournaments or anything.
Well, that's the thing with Armada. I say when people are going, is this good or is this bad? I say it can be good if you make it good. Example is someone actually won in the US, actually won regionals with a Victory Corruptor list. So it can be done. It's not mission impossible, but
of course
you're giving yourself a handicap basically. But if you find the right knack, you find the right list, you find what you feel right is you fly, then anything can win the day. It's not like X Wing, the meta list that kind of rules and says, well, that's you can't do anything about this. You die now. At least with Armada, if you build something right and you believe in it and you work on it, you can win it. Angry?
100%, I agree with that. And we've seen lists out there that come out that, that we've had conversations where we went, how the hell did you make that work? Like we've all been playing between us, since almost its inception, and you sit back and you go with these lists, and you look at you scratch your head and go, how the hell did that list win over? I mean, shit, we play so many little events that we go, that's a cool list, or that's a cool list. I mean, you run your dicta and all that, which you've honed into a lethal weapon, and all of us rag on you and go, oh well, look, Mars is back with his VSD dicta, or Mars has got this, or Mars has got that with his dicta, but you've honed that to a lethal weapon to a point where not a lot of people run a dicta and can do what you can do with it, because you know what you're doing and how to run it with the squadron.
Absolutely.
Now,
I touched on that concept with when you brought it to 40k. The same thing. I have my older armies, but the amount of time I've used them for, I can still be effective in a modern game. It just means you're on the back foot in terms of rules on paper, and it just means you have to be a bit more creative or a bit more patient or whatever with what you're trying to get out of it. I mean, it's not exactly apples and apples because it's a very different sort of game and different intent to be involved. But Armada can be. You can apply like, oh, cool, I'm going to do a list of literally the ships that were in this at bloody, I don't know. I'm going to put the ship in that was at in Rogue One.
Yeah,
I'm going to use that ship. And I'm going to put those squadrons in, and you can sort of make it work in Armada if you want to.
Yeah. But, you can make a thematic fleet.
And if you get enough reps with it, I mean, the list isn't the bit, like, as much as we're talking about the points differences, I think, like a victory, everything Hangry's just saying there is just, it can't always account for the ability to just fly on the table, like, because I'll give Ian credit, despite it being spammy, CRs with bloody PRCs and stuff. He has gotten quite adept at flying those little ships really, he just can move them around really well and makes it hard to catch them.
Absolutely.
And that in of itself is a skill. Even without the TRC stuff, he's developed that skill to fly them. So, well done.
Have a look at Trash. Trash flies hammerheads. Like, you think these things can be one-shotted by almost everything that's on the board, but yet Trash flies this so lethal with, I don't think he flies anything above a medium ship in that list. I think it's, it's what, 4 hammerheads and a CR90, and honestly,
he loves his Pelter.
Yeah, but what I mean is, he flies that list with same lethality of it. But you think this is a tiny little hammerheads. I mean, I think I've flown a CR90 once in my day and it got blown out of the water, and I just go, how the hell are people turning this thing so fast and running away when I play them? But yet I play it and it gets blown away on the second shot. Like, same again, people just honing skills to a point of going, this is where we move it with.
Absolutely. And look, and take example again for Clint as well. He flies a squadronless fleet. And some people would scratch their heads and go, are you crazy not bringing squadrons? You're going to get eaten alive. But Clint...
Oh, yeah, Clint's bloody red dice is the problem with that.
That's one thing. We all scratch
I
our
swear
heads.
to God, I'm telling you, I reckon Clint sold his soul for those friggin' red dice, because I tell you what, when he rolls 12 dice and 9 of them are double... There's something going on.
Oh,
with
don't get me started. I don't know how many therapies have.
You felt the pain.
You
know this.
I know. I've been to therapy. I know this. So I had to beat Clint for the last tournament, and now I feel better now. So thanks. And of course, thanks to thermal shields, of course, too, because that
exactly. So, but one thing I will say is, look, I've got to hand it to Atomic Mass Games. These guys have got a big task ahead of them. They have managed to get out a Republic fleet, and I can understand if you've been given this game that's out there, that it is a worldwide game and everyone plays and everything else, and they sort of, FFG sort of said, oh well, it's here you go, handball, it's your problem now, you deal with it.
Yeah.
And they've kind of done well. They've I think COVID helped them a lot, and I hate calling that out, but COVID gave them that period to go, hey, hang on, shit, we've got a little bit of breathing room to come up with something, and deliveries and getting everything out there was a pain in the ass, and we're starting to see it all flow again now because of it. But they've done well to bring out new fleets and get the game going with the Republic and the CIS, and they're doing really well there. And I hope their intention is to get all this new stuff out and then go, cool, let's go back and now fix something back, because I would hate to think that the way the game is going is to go, oh, here's where we're at. Sorry, don't worry about the Imperial and Republic. Let's just concentrate on this. Because I think if that's the way of thinking, it'll be the death of the game. Because I think you've got a lot of guys out there that are, love playing the old school. I'm an Imperial player. Like I said, I'm not myself, as much as I want to, I just can't see myself spending more money on buying Republic fleets and CIS fleets for the sake of just buying fleets. I mean, I've bought my new upgrade pack the other day for my card, so I want to go back and redo lists and stuff like that again now. But
Yeah.
I'll still continue with the Imperial. I just hope that, they continue to give the love to it later on.
That's the thing, though. We just don't know because of this time uncertainty. We just don't know what AMG are going to do. The thing is, though, AMG didn't do the Republic stuff. It's all FFG at the moment. Still all FFG. AMG haven't really come to the table towards anything. I presume all the stuff that they're doing right now, that's going to be released next year. So all the stuff that's coming out now, that's still FFG FFG worked stuff. So right now we don't even have an idea what Wave 3 will be. So we're still probably have to wait till Gen Con, and that's in, I believe, August or September. I have to double check on that one. But in this time, we're kind of like, well, we've got our Venators and our invisible hands. Now we just wait. And of course, thanks to what's happened around the world, we'll just need to wait.
Speaking of that too, as you mentioned, there's a different time. Is it possibly a product of, I know, so I was still talking about the victory a little bit.
Yeah.
We're in a climate of the game where there hasn't been a lot of reps played with the victory, even maybe using some new cards that may have access to from the new stuff. Is that a potential thing?
I don't think so. I if you have a look at the new cards, they're more for especially like they're
mostly faction locked with the new stuff. But
yeah,
well, no,
that's what I was going to say. A lot of the good stuff is faction locked.
No, well, Flak Guns isn't. Flak Guns is a really decent card, but again, that doesn't go on the victory because it has it's for salvo, and it turns salvo blue dice into long range and then salvo black dice into medium range. It doesn't work on
salvo.
It doesn't work. First off, you're going to have salvo, and two, it has 2 reds, so it doesn't work anyway. And then the other card that might work is the cheap turbo laser, the DB, whatever that one is. That again, that's another salvo card, but it basically gives you an automatic crit with a salvo, so you can turn a blank into a crit. So that's cheap turbo laser for salvo. So they're the ones that you can. Oh, there's the what's that one? There is a new one that can be really good for it. I just have to remember it is. If you take the VSD2, you can take the point defense iron cannon. That's the 4.1. So while defending at close range, at distance 1 during the defense token, you may force the attacker to reroll one of your dice of your choice. That's good against bombers and, of course, anything close up. But, again, not really good with VSD when you're trailing behind, when you're trying to get to close range. But against bombers, it'd be really good. So they're the 3 main cards that are not faction-specific that can be used. But I don't think it would help the VSD. So again, the newer cards, reactive gunner. If you want reactive gunner on the VSD, you got to put Tua, and then you could, and it
starts becoming too messy, and then you may as well just take an ISD.
An ISD, yeah.
You're starting to look there, and that's where this whole problem stems from. Is how do you fix something that's, as I said, it was good when it came out, and obviously they looked at it and went, great, here we go, here's a little ship to come out and all that. I mean, how like it going to have so many problems. I look at the fact that a Gladiator is on a small ship card, but yet Quasar's on a medium ship base. You look at things like that. These are things that could be fixed later on and need to be looked at. But how do you fix a victory? The only way I see a victory getting fixed is, as you said, put a salvo token on it. If you want to put a salvo token, it'll beef it up that little bit more, especially with the 2 red dice.
Absolutely.
Just give it another speed. Just like I said, I don't care if it's 1-0, or if it's just give it a speed 3. It doesn't have to be every maneuver on it or anything like that. It could be something stupid like the 1-0. There are ways around that. As you said, throw Jerry on, becomes good. Move that. Just to me, I'd even take it with the points it's got for 3. It just makes the ship more maneuverable.
Yeah. Awesome stuff, guys. All right, let's try to wrap it up now, guys. Let's go into any final thoughts. Hangry, any final thoughts before we head off tonight?
No, that was about it. Like I said, it just how do you fix a problem? You got to get the people involved at the top to actually stop and listen to the people. I think I've heard you guys say this all the time on Fly Casual. When the people at the top listen to the people, things sort of start happening. But when you're at the top and you just go, "Oh well, we're doing it, just deal with it,"
Yeah,
you're never going to get it. And I mean, you touched on the 40k thing. I mean, Games Workshop is notorious for just going, "Don't like it, go elsewhere." And they're a juggernaut at the point of going, yeah, you may have liked that model, but here's a new one. And you go, well, what about that old one? And I go, yeah, we'll look at printing it maybe later on and you can get it, but until then, here's your new model. And James, you'll attest to it, the meta becomes something different that you can't fight with your old one, so you have to evolve or you get sort of left behind.
Yeah, well, it depends on whether you want to be ultra competitive or not. That's a very broad thing there. Armada has a similar thing going on where, I mean, I'm slightly less inclined to worry too much about competitive days because I do have pretty much an old set, and there's not anything new and exciting game mechanic wise I can add to what's already there. Whereas it's totally fine for the new factions to have their own flavor, their own gimmicks, but it does sort of leave things behind a little bit because they still have access to the old ones.
Yeah.
So
that's your final thoughts, James. Anything else you want to add before we head off?
No, I'm still gonna make my victories work.
No, that's good. I'm more than I'm really happy to see people try victories. As I said, we've got a comment here as well from Ethan Long from Facebook. He says, the VSD does not need fixing. It's a magnificent vessel. I still run it today with even with 1 or 4 in my list. So there's some positives for you. There's some players that still
4 victory list.
Yeah.
Geez, I'd be interested to see that.
Absolutely. So, Ethan, if you do watch us, give us that list, and I'll definitely like to see. I would like to put it onto the table and fly it and see how it goes. So
I tell you, you've got 4 of them, Mars.
Yes.
I think that's a list I'd love to actually see it run.
I will try it if I get this list from Ethan.
He's just going to do 4 victory. He's just going to do 4 of them with decaps, and that'll be it.
That's basically it.
Yeah. Probably with Remoti.
Yeah, Clint's saying 4 victories with Remoti.
Yeah. Of course it'd be Remoti. Look at him with Remoti with LTTs. That's all that he need, and he bloody red dice it in the...
Clint is saying we should try house rules for our victories to bring out more out. The only problem is I see, Clint, is anytime we do house rules, no one shows up to house rules. So especially when we try to do something different.
Well, we're not professional game designers, mate.
No, but anytime we try to do something different, it's like, yeah, we'll be out. Then no one shows up. It's like everyone shows up for only 400-point games. So, you know what?
So I got a last thought for you, mate.
Sure.
When was the last time, and you think of how many events we've held between now and whenever, and James, I know you are notorious for running them, but when was the last time you actually saw a victory on the table? Because honestly, I was thinking about it when we were doing this conversation. I honestly can't remember the last time I properly saw a victory on a table of anyone's. And I mean, how we had 9 people turn up to our last event.
Yeah, no, it's been a while. Like it'll be either.
Funny you say that too, because we had 9 and we had mostly Imperial fleets too.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, James, I think you probably would be the last person who's ever played a victory.
That's the last one I can think of. That was only because he didn't have an ISD.
But I know.
Sorry,
like you go say like a nationals or another like another state's regional, there will be one player playing a victory. There will be one person that is trying that victory list. I don't say they're dead. They're just obscure.
No, they're not useless. They're just hard to get. They're just hard to get sort of bang for your buck out of where.
Yeah.
Like you just have to try that much extra harder to try to focus on getting more out of your victory that you kind of end up struggling to do the other things in the game.
Now, I do remember actually Duke played that 5 activation with a VSD decaps, and that was nastier as well. So he had an ISD, VSD, I think a Gladiator, and then something else. I can't remember what off the top of my head, but he's beat me with that couple of times with that one. That's a good honourable list that he that does give out a bit of a punch. So it's a bit old, but I remember that list, and he just gave me a wallop one time. So there are, as I said, as you can say, there are some qualities that are pretty good, but it just all round it just falls by the wayside sometimes.
But from a competitive point of view, it just lacks a bit of efficiency that other things have. That's pretty much the core crux of it.
Yeah,
I think
100%.
that's probably my final thought there. In that sense, it's not useless and broken as such.
No,
but it's just not as efficient as everything else.
yeah. So if you want
and
to
it's only and it's a degree that just makes enough of a difference on the table.
Yeah.
It just makes this that much harder to use effectively.
Yeah, because like if you think about it, it's like you want a brawler, take Gladiator. You want a squadron pusher, take Quasar. You want a big hitter, like a long range hitter, take a Simoon. You know, everything the Imperials have, they have an answer for, and it doesn't include the VSD.
I think that's what I was trying to just in my final thing. It doesn't have a place at the moment, and I think that's the biggest problem. As you said, you've got everything has its place. The victory doesn't have a place at the moment, and it's kind of that I don't know where I fit into this puzzle, and I think that's the problem. It needs to have that fixed to make it a resurgent to fit into that puzzle. Where, as you said, it's not a squadron pusher, it's not a bulldog, it's not a, it's kind of a just a ship that's there that go, hey, you want to fill your slot? Here you go, take some points, but it's got no role.
Yeah, absolutely. So hopefully, anyone watching this, don't take despair and don't think that the VSD is not useful. It just needs a little help. And as I said, other ships have their place. VSD is kind of lost in transition. But if you have a list, you have a VSD list that you think is pretty awesome, send us an email, chat in Discord, add it to the comments, and let us know. And if it's worked out for you, well done. I applaud any person that takes a VSD. They're beautiful looking ships, but if you can make them work, top marks for that. All right, guys. First off, thank you guys for joining me tonight. It's been very productive. As I said, it's good to have two Imperial players that know the ship. Ian would have dismissed the comment and talked about the guppy all night and said how Rebel players need more medium-sized ships, so it is good to have Imperial players on instead of dirty Rebel players. So thank you guys for joining us.
No problems. He also would have asked for Guri to be entered into
the game too. Guri and where's Aiden Teller? So yeah. So thanks, guys. That's it for tonight, guys. What's coming up next? We're not sure because unfortunately we are in lockdown at the moment, but stay tuned. We'll have some more stuff coming up. I do want to hint that there might be a special tournament coming up, and not in the near future. I am working on something. I'm actually releasing this information now. Something big is coming. I haven't gone into full detail yet, but there will be a big Armada tournament at the end of this year, I'd say. More to come when I have...
kept this close to your heart, Mars. You normally can't keep secrets. What's going on here?
No. But I've actually got an idea, and we will... when ISP
will be onto him.
Of course. When I have more details, I'll release some further info. But there is something coming, guys, and it'll be pretty awesome. So if you are in the area, I recommend joining up for this one. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Leave your comments. Anything else you say on the VSD? Any ideas, ways of improving it? Give us a whirl. Any lists? Give us a list and see how it goes. All right, that's all for tonight, guys. And remember, subscribe, like us on Facebook, and fly casual!